What's up, guys? Welcome to the line change. And in this video, we're going to be going over another potential trade target for the Vancouver Canucks. This one, I know there's been a lot of speculation and talk about guys like JJ Peterka, Bowen Byram. The Canucks being very interested in JJ Peterka as well as Byram. But there's one other Buffalo Sabre that not too many people have been talking about as a potential trade target for the Vancouver Canucks. Someone who, in a way, has connections to the Vancouver Canucks. And we're going to talk about that said player. Now, but before we dive into it, I want to give a big shout out and thank you to my sponsor, Gassy Jack Art, maker of that incredible artwork you see there behind me. Big thank you to Gassy Jack Art, maker of that incredible artwork you saw. You can find him at GassyJackArt.com. You can also find him on Instagram at GassyJackArt. Go ahead, check him out. I believe he still has his end of season sale going on. So get your prints while you can, GassyJackArt.com. All right, so moving on to this video's topic discussion. And if you haven't figured it out by now, we're going to be talking about Alex Tuch of the Buffalo Sabres. We're going to go over an article from our friends at Canucks Army, in particular, Stefan Roget. And let's just go ahead and dive right into it now. The Vancouver Canucks were reportedly far down the path of acquiring current Buffalo Sabre Josh Norris around this past trade deadline, but it didn't work out. Now, of course, we talked about that a little bit on how they were supposedly going to be they were trying to flip Philip Hedl for Josh Norris. It got far, but it ended up, falling apart. And obviously, Norris ended up going to the Sabres instead of the Senators. So the Canucks would have traded Hedl to the Senators for Josh Norris, but the Senators ended up trading him to Buffalo instead. Now, we already talked about Canucks potentially restarting some Norris discussions during this offseason. But while that remains a distinct possibility, there may actually be a much better trade candidate lurking on Buffalo's forward roster in the form of Alex Tuch. The appeal of a player like Tuch is obvious. Even at a glance, he just turned 29. He stands 6'4" and 220 pounds, and completed his second 36-goal campaign in 3 years during the 2024-2025 season. Now, a lot of people have been still harping on the whole, stuff with Marco Rossi, him being 5'9", he's not big enough, and that the Canucks need big guys on the wing. Well, Alex Tuch, you just heard it right there. He's 6'4". So I think he'd be a great target. But let's continue on with the article. Tuch stands out as one of the last remaining true power forwards in the game. In a perfect world, the Sabres would keep him in the fold, especially considering he hails from nearby Syracuse, New York. But at the same time, Tuch has just 1 year remaining on his $4.75 million AAV contract until he hits UFA status in the summer of 2026. So about a year from now. The early goings of July passed by without Tuch having signed an extension. The Sabres will have to consider trading him rather than watching him walk away for nothing at the end of what we have to assume will be another disappointing Buffalo season. Elliot Friedman has reported that Tuch has not asked to move, but that's not the same as asking to stay. Asking to stay is definitely not the same as signing an extension. As such, the rumors of his pending departure may have already started to crop up. With just a 5-team no-trade clause, Tuch doesn't have an abundance of control over his destination. That said, if the Sabres want to maximize their return, they're probably best trading Tuch to somewhere he's willing to negotiate and sign with, preferably as part of trade discussions. And remember how we mentioned that he has ties to Vancouver? We're about to tell you what those ties are. On that front, we've heard tell that Tuch's wife, Kylie, is from the Vancouver area, and many have used this fact to theorize that the Canucks might be a preferred destination should the Tuchs leave New York State. In other words, there are plenty of reasons to think Tuch might be a valid trade target for the Canucks to pursue, if not immediately, then in a few weeks if Tuch still hasn't signed an extension with the Sabres. Of course, in this instance in particular, a valid trade target does not translate into an affordable one. Take a look at Alex Tuch, the player. Tuch is truly your classic power forward profile, right down to the late blooming. He was drafted by the Minnesota Wild at 18th overall in 2014 before embarking on 2 seasons at Boston College. He signed with the Wild after that and played most of the 2016-2017 season with the Iowa Wild of the AHL, along with his first 6 NHL games in Minnesota, during which he went pointless. The expansion draft of 2017 brought the Vegas Golden Knights into existence, and a slew of lopsided trades ensued as teams struggled to adjust to the new team-building rules. The Wild traded Tuch and a conditional third-round pick to Vegas in exchange for Vegas selecting Erik Haula in the expansion draft, or more indirectly, in exchange for their not picking Eric Staal, Matt Dumba, or Marcos Scandella instead. The rookie Tuch was one of the reasons those inaugural Golden Knights got off the ground running. He put up 15 goals and 37 points in 78 games for 2017-2018, and then added another 10 points in 20 games as Vegas improbably marched all the way to the Stanley Cup Finals in their debut season. Tuch then avoided the sophomore curse in 2018-2019, racking up 20 goals and 52 points in 74 games. Injuries and the COVID-19 pandemic shortened Tuch's 2019-2020 season, though that was perhaps for the best, as Tuch had a dreadful year of just 17 points in 42 games, but he rebounded nicely in those eventual 2020 playoffs with 12 points in 20 postseason games on the way to the Western Conference Finals. Tuch's goal scoring took another uptick pace-wise for 2020-2021 with 18 goals and 33 points in 55 games, and then another 9 points in 19 postseason games. But it was not enough to keep him in Vegas. That summer, Tuch was included in the trade that brought Jack Eichel to Vegas, alongside Peyton Krebs, a first-round pick, and a second-round pick. Tuch won some accolades for being the rare player to express genuine excitement upon arriving in Buffalo. His first season there, 2021-2022, featured some injury trouble and a respectable, if lackluster, 12 goals and 38 points in 50 games. But it would be Tuch's 2022-2023 season at age 26 where he would really seem to put it all together. Tuch broke out to 36 goals and 79 points in 74 games, blowing all previous career highs out of the water, and he did so on a Buffalo team that didn't exactly have an abundance of offense to brag about elsewhere on the roster. The 2023-2024 season was a step back for Tuch, down to 22 goals and 59 points in 75 games, still the second best season of his career, but he bounced all the way back to another 36 goals and 67 points in 82 games this past 2024-2025 season, bringing us all the way to the present day. And we've said Tuch profiles as a vintage power forward, able to use his big body to protect and carry the puck to either drive it toward the net or create space for his teammates. There are actually some compelling similarities between he and former Canuck captain Bo Horvat. Both were drafted amid some questions regarding their skating ability, but both worked extremely hard on fixing that flaw. Today, Tuch, like Horvat, is one of the best in the league at carrying the puck with momentum. He's also taken his time in the NHL to really round out the rest of his game. Tuch earns ample praise for his two-way dedication. Get this, last season was the first of his career with a Corsi rating below 50%, and it only dipped down to 49.88%. For a player who has now spent more than half of his career in Buffalo, that's simply remarkable. Tuch has managed to be on the ice for more goals for than against in each of his Sabres campaigns thus far, and that's while typically facing matchups that are more difficult than the league average. Already a fixture on the power play, Tuch has also become one of Buffalo's best penalty killers. Yes, this is truly a player who can and does do it all. If he really is available this summer, he's easily one of the most valuable forwards on the market. Naturally, that means he won't come cheap. Speaking of cheap, let's take a look at what it could cost the Vancouver Canucks if they were to try and acquire Alex Tuch via a trade. Canucks have to hope here that some factors align to potentially reduce their personal cost for Tuch. If, say, he expresses that Vancouver is one of the few places he'd be willing to negotiate a new contract with prior to a trade, that would definitely help. If not, and if the Canucks are just one of many equal bidders on a Tuch trade, we can expect the price tag to reach some pretty astronomical heights. The Sabres, as we've noted before, are most interested in returning to playoffs after a full 14 years away from them. That means they're primarily interested in pieces that can help them now. All that said, the Sabres may also be willing to accept some future assets that they could then flip later, so really anything is on the table. We've noted before that the Sabres are particularly invested in improving the right side of their blue line. Rasmus Dahlin can play on his offside, but they'd be much better off if they had genuine right shot defenseman partners available for he and Owen Power. That means that Philip Hronek and prospect Tom Willander would be very high on their list of potential acquisitions. A Hronek for Tuch trade favors the Sabres quite heavily, especially given the discrepancy in contract length. That would have to be the basis of a much larger trade. We do think there's potential for a Willander for Tuch swap, especially if Tuch indicates he's not going to re-sign in Buffalo. Such a deal would be tough to swallow for the Vancouver fan base, but if they could get Tuch under extension as part of it, it would feel a lot more acceptable. Beyond those clear-cut pieces, anything else seems as though it would have to become part of a package. Canucks' 15th overall pick is a valuable piece, but it doesn't quite add up to Tuch's value on its own. A Connor Garland for Tuch swap makes some sense if each side is willing to sign an extension with their new club thereafter, but the Canucks would almost certainly have to add something significant on top as they acquire the better of the two players. Without knowing exactly what Buffalo is doing with their other sellables this offseason, the exact price tag is a little difficult to prognosticate. Okay, suffice to say that the Canucks should have the pieces on hand to meet the Sabres' ask, but perhaps not without enduring a tough decision on the way to doing so. There's no scenario in which the Canucks acquire Tuch for anything approaching cheap, but there are perhaps scenarios where it makes sense for them to pay a little extra for him, and in doing so obtain a much more impactful forward than they could reasonably acquire elsewhere. Let's take a look at how Alex Tuch would fit with the Vancouver Canucks and this roster as well as this lineup. Tuch would instantly become the best winger on the Canucks and maybe the best winger they've had in a while. He can score at the same basic rate as Brock Besser while providing an ample amount of other positive attributes, including that physicality and toughness that is currently a little absent in the Vancouver forward group. To be clear here, when we talk Tuch's fit in Vancouver, we primarily mean in the context of his both being traded for and extended. A one-year rental of Tuch makes the Canucks a better team in 2025-2026, but wouldn't be a smart move for the franchise in the long term. A Tuch extended through his early 30s, however, goes a long way toward pushing the Canucks back toward contender status, especially if the number he extends for is anywhere similar to what they were considering paying Besser. We really like the potential of him matching up well with Elias Pettersson, providing both a bit of beef on his wing and the ability to keep up defensively with Pettersson's deployments. But really, there's a lot to like about what Tuch would add to the lineup and very little not to like. If the price is right, this is a player that should be at or near the top of the Canucks' list of targets. But if he's subject to an open season bidding war that pushes the cost of acquisition to the absolute max, this may be a piece too premium to afford. It all comes down to the cost. Fit-wise, there are a few players who fit better. So that's Alex Tuch. Just some final thoughts. Obviously, hearing that his wife is from the Vancouver area, obviously that immediately makes people think, that could intrigue Alex if A, the Sabres were to approach him, and B, if well, if the Sabres were to approach him and let him know, like, hey, the Vancouver Canucks are knocking on our door about you, would you be open? If you're not going to re-sign with us, would you be open to going there and signing with them long term? So I do like the idea of Alex Tuch. Seeing that, he's 6'4", 220 pounds. He's a big guy. And, considering he's a goal scorer, and at least 2 out of the last 3 seasons, he's put up 30 plus goals. So I'm really intrigued about Alex Tuch. I'd be okay with them acquiring Alex Tuch. Obviously, the cost is there, and that's the big question. What's it going to cost the Canucks if they were to acquire Alex Tuch? Is it going to cost them somebody like Hronek? Clearly Buffalo is looking for right-handed defensemen, or for defensemen on the right side. Canucks have a bit of an abundance of those. In particular, guys like Willander. And so obviously the cost is going to be high. And, we even brought up, trading Garland. I know we talked just a couple of days ago about Garland wants to resign with Vancouver, and the Canucks are going to be talking extension with him. So let me know in the comment section down below what you guys think about Alex Tuch and him being a potential trade target for the Vancouver Canucks. One that's not, JJ Peterka or Bowen Byram. Let me know in the comment section down below what you guys think. And as always, if you guys like this video, be sure to hit that like button. If you want to stay up to date on all Canucks content, be sure to smash that subscribe button and turn on your notifications so you don't miss a single video. You can find us on social media. Find us on Facebook. Just search The Line Change to find our Facebook page. Find us on Instagram at The Line Change. Find us on X at Line Change Van. Find us on TikTok at the.line.change.po. And if you prefer an audio version of this podcast, find us on both Spotify and Apple Podcasts. On Spotify, once again, feel free to give us a follow, as well as rate and review us. It is greatly appreciated. That's going to do it for me for this video. As always, let's go Canucks, and I'll see you guys in the next video.